In a quiet forest in upstate New York, a 14-year-old boy asked a single question. That question would challenge centuries of religious certainty, divide communities, and ignite one of the most controversial movements in Christian history. This is not just a story about a vision. It is a story about what happens when heaven answers a human prayer. The early 1800s were a time of religious confusion. Churches multiplied, preachers competed. Revival meetings promised certainty but delivered contradiction. Young Joseph Smith lived in this world of spiritual noise. Each church claimed authority. Each denied the others. And Joseph, deeply aware of his own imperfections, wanted forgiveness and truth. He felt lost, unsure where to turn. He read the Bible, searching for an answer, and found a powerful invitation in the book of James. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. So he did what Scripture had instructed believers to do for centuries. He prayed. Joseph sought solitude in a wooded area near his home, a place that would later be called the Sacred Grove. Alone he knelt and, for the first time in his life, spoke aloud to God. But instead of peace, he encountered resistance, a thick confusion, a profound fear, and a darkness that felt intentional, almost suffocating. He couldn't speak. He couldn't think. It felt like an unseen power was determined to stop him. This moment matters, because in Scripture, divine revelation is often preceded by opposition. Moses faced Pharaoh. Christ faced the wilderness. And here, in a quiet grove, a young boy faced forces that tried to silence him before his prayer could be completed. Then, just as he was about to give up, everything changed. A brilliant pillar of light descended from above, brighter than the noonday sun, yet gentle, controlled, and intentional. The darkness vanished instantly. And within that light, he saw two divine beings standing in the air above him. The glory and brightness were impossible to describe. One of them spoke, calling Joseph by name, and pointed to the other, saying words that would echo through modern Christianity. "This is my beloved Son. Hear him." This was not symbolic. This was not an internal emotion or a dream. This was a claimed literal encounter with God the Father and Jesus Christ as distinct, living, glorified beings. Joseph finally found his voice and asked the question that had brought him there. Which of all the churches was the true one, and which should he join? The answer was unexpected and disruptive. He was told not to join any of them. He was informed that their creeds were an abomination in God's sight, and that the professors of those faiths were corrupt. The sacred authority that Christ had established with his apostles, he was told, was no longer fully present on the earth. This was not a rejection of Christ. It was a declaration that Christ intended to restore his gospel and his church in its original fullness. This moment reframed Christian history not as a complete story, but as one that was interrupted and awaiting a divine renewal. When Joseph shared what he had experienced, the reaction was not celebration, it was rejection. He first told a local preacher, expecting support, but was met with contempt. The preacher treated his story as if it came from the devil. Soon, religious leaders dismissed him. Neighbors mocked him. Some accused him of deception, others of delusion. He was just a teenager, poor and uneducated from a farm family. And yet, his testimony unsettled people enough to provoke immediate and intense hostility. Why? Because a claimed open heaven challenges a closed religious system. If God could speak to a boy in the woods, it meant the rules of religion, as they knew them, had changed. Despite the persecution, Joseph would recount this vision multiple times throughout his life. As he grew older and his audiences changed, the details he shared would vary in emphasis, sometimes focusing on the personal forgiveness he sought, other times on the official beginning of his mission. But the core of the story never changed. He prayed, he saw, he heard, and he knew. He often compared himself to the Apostle Paul, who, after seeing a light and hearing a voice, was ridiculed. Joseph maintained a single, unwavering conviction: God had spoken again. For him, truth was no longer a theoretical idea found in a book. It was personal, tangible, and real. The first vision is not only about Joseph Smith, it raises a timeless question for every generation. Does God still speak? And if he does, are we willing to listen? In a world full of noise, competing voices, and borrowed beliefs, the invitation that inspired a 14-year-old boy remains the same. Seek, ask, and when heaven responds, hear him. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think, consider subscribing for more.